Beyond the Gates spoilers for Wednesday, July 23rd, tease that Catherine "Cat" Richardson is on the brink of unleashing a calculated, ruthless assault on her half-sister, Eva Thomas. In a world where family means friction and shared blood fuels betrayal, the tension between these two women has simmered long enough. Now, it's reaching a boil. Their shared history is jagged, marked by small jabs and mounting jealousy, but recent events have kicked everything into overdrive. The moment Ted Richardson decided to replace Cat at his firm with Eva, he unwittingly sparked a war between sisters that was bound to burn through more than just office politics. Cat wasn't just angry, she was humiliated. Stripped of her position and watching Eva rise in her place, Cat began to spin her vengeance in the shadows. First came the subtle sabotage, incorrect client files, missed appointments mysteriously slipping off Eva's calendar, whispered gossip laced with just enough plausibility to make Eva look careless. But Eva, astute and composed, saw through the games. She knew Cat's signature chaos. Instead of retaliating, she chose dignity. She refused to inform Ted, hoping Cat would burn out her resentment on her own. That restraint, however, only emboldened Cat. Her hatred wasn't about losing a job. It was about Eva winning Thomas Navarro's attention, a man Cat wasn't just dating, but obsessing over. The flirtation between Eva and Thomas had always hovered beneath the surface, glances too long, silences too charged. Cat felt it. She felt it in the way Thomas's gaze softened around Eva. She hated it. She feared it. And she vowed to extinguish it. When Eva confronted Cat after yet another carefully planted error, the mask came off. Eva made it clear she was done. No more silent forgiveness. No more family loyalty shielding Cat from consequences. But Cat didn't retreat. She escalated. She warned Eva, if Thomas ever dared choose Eva over her, then both of them would suffer. This wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was war. The atmosphere at the office curdled. Ted, oblivious to the full extent of his daughter's feud, noticed the tension but chalked it up to adjustment pains. What he didn't realize was that his firm was now a battlefield. Cat was methodical. She began planting false rumors with clients, suggesting Eva was inexperienced, that she lacked the edge required for serious negotiations. She even recruited a former intern to discreetly leak confidential memos under Eva's name. Each blow was designed not just to undermine Eva's career, but to erode her confidence. Cat wanted Eva to fall apart from the inside. Eva, however, wasn't cracking. With quiet fury, she documented everything. Every suspicious event. Every conversation. She built a case, not for revenge, but for protection. She was preparing, waiting for the moment when Cat would push too far. And Cat did. She staged a scandal, a doctored email implicating Eva in leaking financial statements to a rival firm. It could have destroyed her. But Eva saw it coming. She presented evidence to Ted, not just to clear her name, but to finally expose her sister's campaign. The fallout was nuclear. Ted was blindsided. Cat was suspended indefinitely. But instead of apologizing or showing remorse, she doubled down. That night, she appeared at Eva's apartment, her eyes blazing with fury and hurt. She accused Eva of betrayal, of stealing everything she ever had. Eva, exhausted and finally unafraid, told her the truth. Thomas had feelings for Eva. He hadn't acted on them, but they were there. The admission was gasoline on Cat's fire. She swore revenge. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner of this chaotic world, Chelsea Hamilton was facing her own storm. Her new relationship with Madison Montgomery was gaining strength, marked by laughter, honesty, and the slow unfolding of vulnerability. But a shadow from Chelsea's past refused to fade. Allison, her former girlfriend, had reappeared with an ugly agenda. Claiming injury and seeking Chelsea's sympathy, Allison wormed her way back into Chelsea's periphery. Madison saw through it immediately. Allison wasn't just faking her injury, she was issuing threats. Behind closed doors, she confronted Madison, warning her to step aside or face consequences. The threats were veiled, but the message was clear. Madison, proud and protective, refused to back down. She told Chelsea everything. At first, Chelsea didn't want to believe it. But when she confronted Allison, the venom in Allison's response told her everything she needed to know. Chelsea cut ties. She made it clear Allison no longer had a place in her life. But the damage lingered. Madison, though relieved to be believed, was shaken. The encounter revealed how far Allison was willing to go. It was no longer a question of jealousy. It was obsession. Elsewhere, Haley Hamilton, Chelsea's older sister, was spinning a lie of her own. Her husband, Bill, had been overjoyed when Haley announced her pregnancy. It brought a lightness back into their marriage, a sense of purpose they thought they'd lost. But something didn't add up. Haley's stories didn't match. She spoke of ultrasound appointments that never happened. She grew evasive when Bill asked to attend the next one. The truth began to unravel thanks to Ashley Morgan, a friend of Haley's from the prenatal yoga group. Ashley casually mentioned to Bill that Haley had missed several sessions. When Bill asked about the last ultrasound, Ashley's face froze. She hadn't heard about one. In fact, she was sure Haley had told her she wasn't going in for another month. Confused and worried, Bill began checking hospital records. There was no appointment. No ultrasound. No file at the clinic Haley claimed to visit. Haley had lied. But why? She loved Bill. At least, she believed she did. But in the pit of her stomach, she feared losing him. She feared the growing distance between them. The pregnancy was meant to fix everything, to pull them back together. But once the lie began, she couldn't stop. Now she was trapped. And Bill was starting to see through it. As these threads pulled tighter, each character found themselves tangled in lies, betrayal, and emotional warfare. The heat was rising, and no one could stay neutral. Every decision now carried a consequence. Every silence bred suspicion. And every confrontation edged closer to collapse. Thomas Navarro, unaware of the full storm brewing, tried to keep his distance from the sisters. He felt guilty for the spark he shared with Eva but didn't have the clarity or courage to confront it. Kat's possessiveness frightened him. Eva's warmth drew him in. He was caught between a woman who loved him like a possession and a woman who saw him as a partner. He knew a reckoning was coming. What he didn't know was how far Kat was willing to go to keep him or how deeply Eva had prepared to fight back. Every character in this twisted circle had reached their breaking point. Loyalties were fraying. Secrets were unraveling. And the gates that once kept darkness at bay were creaking open. Kat Richardson didn't vanish into silence after being exposed. Her fury only deepened. The public humiliation, the quiet judgment from colleagues, and most of all, the sting of knowing Thomas Navarro was drifting further toward Eva, it all fed a storm inside her that demanded release. She didn't want justice. She wanted devastation. And this time, she wouldn't play coy. The gloves were off. She began digging into Eva's past, determined to find anything, no matter how small, that could be twisted into a weapon. An old internship gone sour. A former professor with a grudge. Even a minor financial discrepancy in Eva's grad school records. Kat left no stone unturned. She hired a private investigator, someone with no morals and a track record for digging up reputations by the roots. While Kat orchestrated her next move, she also grew colder, more detached, even from her allies. Paranoia crept in. She believed Ted had never truly believed in her, that Thomas had never really loved her, and that Eva had always been the golden child destined to take everything Kat built. At the same time, Eva was preparing for war in her own way. Her confrontation with Kat had clarified one thing: civility was no longer an option. She began securing her position at the firm, reaching out to key clients and building relationships that couldn't be easily broken. She knew that if Kat came for her again, she would have to fight not only to protect her job, but her sense of self. Eva had always been the more reserved, diplomatic sibling, but now she embraced a steelier version of herself, not cruel, but no longer soft. Thomas Navarro found himself pulled into the eye of this hurricane. Kat's threats weighed heavily on him. Her behavior had grown volatile. She called him late at night, sent cryptic messages, appeared unannounced outside his building. He tried to talk to her, to reason with her, but the more he pulled back, the more erratic she became. What started as jealousy had evolved into something darker, an obsession wrapped in heartbreak. He turned to Eva, needing clarity. Their connection had always simmered beneath a layer of restraint, but now it flared into something undeniable. For the first time, Thomas admitted his feelings. He kissed her. Eva, torn but relieved, allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. But they both knew this act would become the fuse to a bomb Kat had already lit. When Kat discovered them together, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply walked away, and within 24 hours, she sent an anonymous tip to the media claiming an ethics breach at Ted's firm. Eva and Thomas were implicated. The fallout was swift and brutal. Reporters camped outside the office. Clients panicked. Ted called emergency meetings. Kat had delivered the blow she'd promised. But she underestimated how Eva had fortified herself. Eva came forward, transparent and unwavering. She provided documentation proving her professionalism and clarified the timeline. Thomas did the same. Their honesty turned the tide. Ted, furious but fair, launched a formal investigation and cleared Eva of any wrongdoing. But the firm's reputation had taken a hit. Ted finally realized the true cost of underestimating Kat. He cut her off completely. Meanwhile, Chelsea Hamilton was still unraveling the damage left by Allison. The woman who once claimed to love her had turned into something unrecognizable. After being exposed for faking her injury and threatening Madison, Allison disappeared, but her presence lingered like a shadow. Madison grew uneasy. She began receiving anonymous messages. Photos taken from across the street. Notes left on her windshield. At first, she thought it was a coincidence. But then she found her front door slightly ajar after a night out. Nothing stolen. Just off. Chelsea contacted the police, but without proof, there was little they could do. Madison, tired of fear, confronted her past head-on. She met with Allison one last time in a public place, demanding answers. Allison was cold, her smile brittle. She admitted to everything, not with guilt, but with pride. She claimed Chelsea belonged to her. That Madison was just a phase. Madison walked away, shaken but resolved. Chelsea and Madison doubled down on their relationship. They moved into a more secure building, installed cameras, and kept the police updated. But the scars were forming. Chelsea blamed herself for letting Allison back in, while Madison wrestled with the trauma of being stalked. Trust became their lifeline. As Chelsea fought to build a new future, her sister Haley was watching hers collapse. Bill confronted her with the truth. There were no medical records. No ultrasounds. No proof of the pregnancy she insisted was progressing well. Haley broke. She sobbed, confessed, begged for forgiveness. She hadn't meant to lie, not at first. But once the first deception started, she couldn't find a way back. Bill felt betrayed in a way that shattered something deep. This wasn't a mistake. It was a betrayal of trust, of hope. He moved out temporarily, needing space to think. Haley spiraled. Without Bill, the lie lost all meaning. She tried to reach him, leaving messages, sending letters, promising therapy and honesty. But Bill needed more than promises. He needed time. Ashley Morgan, the woman who first tipped off Bill, found herself caught in the aftermath. She hadn't meant to stir the pot, but now Haley blamed her for everything. Ashley received angry messages, public confrontations. She tried to keep her distance, but one night, she found Haley waiting outside her home, drenched in rain, eyes red. Haley begged her to talk. She needed someone. Anyone. Ashley agreed to listen. As Haley poured out her heartbreak, her fear, her desperation, Ashley saw not just a manipulator, but a deeply broken woman terrified of abandonment. She offered cautious friendship. But she also set boundaries. Haley needed help, real help. Ashley gave her the number of a counselor. Whether Haley would take the advice remained uncertain. Back at the firm, Ted struggled to keep his world intact. His daughters were at war, his name was in the press, and his team was fracturing. He considered retiring, stepping down before things got worse. But Eva convinced him otherwise. She laid out a plan to restore trust, rebrand the company, and rebuild client loyalty. Ted saw in her the future he once hoped Kat could embody. As for Kat, she wasn't finished. She met with a lawyer, not to sue, but to find leverage. She wanted a share of the firm. A payout. Something to validate her years of work. But she had no legal standing. Her efforts only isolated her more. Even her former allies turned away, tired of the chaos she sowed. She started drinking more, going out less. Her social media became erratic. Angry posts. Photos with vague captions. Eventually, Thomas received a message that chilled him, a photo of him and Eva at a restaurant, with the caption, "Enjoy it while you can." He took it to the police. Kat was brought in for questioning. Nothing criminal yet. But she was warned. Hard. One more misstep, and there would be legal consequences. Eva, meanwhile, refused to let fear dictate her life. She continued to rise, stronger and wiser. Her relationship with Thomas, though strained by the chaos, endured. It was built not on passion alone, but on shared scars. Chelsea and Madison, too, began to heal. Therapy helped. So did distance from the past. They started working together on a local advocacy campaign supporting victims of intimate partner manipulation. It gave them purpose. Solidarity. Madison even spoke publicly about her experience. Her voice shook, but she stood tall. Haley, for her part, finally made an appointment with the counselor Ashley recommended. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a step. She admitted her fears, her lies, her need to be loved even if it meant fabricating a life. The counselor didn't judge, just listened. Bill remained distant, but curious. When he heard about the counseling, he didn't reach out. But he didn't block her calls anymore either. Weeks passed. The drama cooled, but the damage lingered. Then, without warning, Kat disappeared. Her phone was off. Her apartment was empty. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. Eva received a final package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. A single file. When she opened it, it was a video, Kat, looking into the camera, calm and detached. "If you're watching this," she began, "it means I finally did something you couldn't clean up. But don't worry. I didn't disappear. I evolved. You wanted peace. Now you have it. But remember, Eva, peace always has a price." The screen went black. The questions started swirling again. Had she run? Was she planning something else? Or was it all just another ploy, the last gasp of a crumbling empire? Eva stared at the blank screen. And for the first time in months, she felt something unexpected. Not fear. Pity. Because Kat hadn't won. She'd just vanished. And the rest of them were still standing. Scarred. But still standing. Weeks after Kat's disappearance, life moved in uneasy silence. The flash drive she left behind haunted Eva. She played it again and again, searching for subtext, a hidden threat, a clue. But each time, it ended the same way, a cryptic message that didn't feel like closure, more like an unfinished sentence hanging in the air. For the first time in a long while, Eva wasn't angry. She was tired. The war with Kat had drained her, but she refused to let it define her future. She pressed forward, reclaiming peace in small increments through her work, through her mornings with Thomas, through silence that didn't hide knives. But peace was fragile. One Friday morning, a security breach hit the firm. Their internal server was hacked. Dozens of sensitive documents leaked anonymously to clients and media outlets. At first, suspicion turned to outside competitors. But one file caught Eva's attention, a photo, digitally marked, showing a login session from a computer registered under Kat's name. The timestamp? 2 days after her supposed disappearance. Eva froze. Kat hadn't vanished. She was watching. The leak destabilized the firm. Some clients left. Others demanded assurances. Ted called in cybersecurity experts and filed reports with authorities. But emotionally, the damage ran deeper. Eva began to feel Kat's presence again in the corners of every decision. It was psychological warfare, and Kat played it well. But Kat wasn't the only one breaking. Chelsea received a package in the mail. Inside was a photo album. Not hers. Not Madison's. It was Allison's. Photos of her and Chelsea from years ago, annotated in fine red pen. The last page showed a photo of Madison asleep, taken from outside their apartment window. A sticky note was attached. "See? I'm still closer than she is." Chelsea handed the evidence to police. That night, she and Madison checked into a hotel under a false name. They needed distance. But Madison's composure cracked. She confessed that she couldn't sleep without checking the locks 3 times. She kept imagining Allison in the room. Chelsea held her and made a promise. When this ended, they would leave town. Start somewhere else. Somewhere safe. Meanwhile, Haley reached a turning point. Therapy unearthed deep-rooted abandonment issues from her childhood. Her need to feel necessary had driven her to fabricate a pregnancy, the one thing she thought could anchor Bill to her. But now she realized love built on falsehoods wasn't love at all. She wrote Bill a letter, confessing everything without excuse. She left it at his doorstep and didn't wait for a response. Then she began preparing for a life without him. Bill, surprisingly, did respond. Weeks later, he knocked on her door, sat down, and said he was willing to try counseling together. Not as a couple. Not yet. But as 2 people who had loved and hurt each other. It wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning. Ted, at the center of all this, made his decision. He announced his retirement, effective immediately. He handed the reins to Eva, naming her as managing partner. The announcement rattled the firm, but it also signaled change. Eva accepted, not out of pride, but necessity. She knew the role would paint a bigger target on her back. But she also knew she was ready. Then, one evening, Eva received a phone call from a blocked number. A woman's voice, whispering, "I'm done watching. Time to play again." The call lasted 6 seconds. Kat. It wasn't over. Thomas urged Eva to leave the city, even if only temporarily. She refused. Instead, she hired private security. She started sleeping with her phone beside her. Kat's next move could come at any moment. But it didn't. Days passed. Then weeks. No message. No incident. Just silence. Again. Then a body washed up at the edge of a lake 3 counties away. A woman. No ID. The police released a sketch. Ted saw it first. Then Thomas. Finally Eva. The features were bloated. The face distorted. But the resemblance to Kat was undeniable. DNA confirmed it. Kat was dead. Drowned. No signs of struggle. No suicide note. Just gone. The authorities ruled it a suicide, though they admitted the details were strange. The location remote. Her phone wiped clean. Her car found miles away. Eva didn't know how to feel. Grief didn't come immediately. Just a strange hollowness. And then, guilt. For hating her sister for so long. For never once trying to understand the pain beneath the chaos. Ted broke down for the first time in years. Kat, his firstborn, the one he had the highest hopes for, had unraveled in plain sight. And he had missed it. Or ignored it. Or excused it. The funeral was small. Just Ted, Eva, Thomas, and a few distant friends. No press. No headlines. Just a quiet, foggy morning and a closed casket. Afterward, Ted handed Eva a journal they found among Kat's things. It was full of fragmented thoughts. Lists of enemies. Love poems to Thomas. Diagrams of the office floor plan. At the end of it all, a single page. I didn't want to be forgotten. That was the real fear. Not losing. Not being unloved. Just being erased. Eva kept that page. As summer turned into fall, the dust began to settle. The firm slowly regained trust. Eva earned respect not by force, but by consistency. Chelsea and Madison sold their condo and moved across the country. Allison was finally arrested after violating a restraining order. She pled guilty and entered a treatment program. Chelsea, after a year of silence, decided to visit her not to reconcile, but to understand. Closure was messy, but necessary. Haley started a blog about emotional healing anonymously at first. She detailed her journey, her lies, and her recovery. It gained traction. Readers thanked her for her honesty. One even recognized her voice and reached out. A publisher. Haley didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. Bill kept attending therapy with her. Thomas and Eva faced their own crossroads. After everything, could they build something healthy? Something real? Thomas suggested a break, not to leave, but to breathe. Eva agreed. They needed to become whole as individuals before they could commit as partners. It wasn't a goodbye. It was an act of maturity. 1 year after Kat's funeral, Eva visited the lake. She stood at the edge, wind in her hair, and whispered the truth. You weren't erased. I remember everything. And for the first time, she felt free. The gates, once symbols of power, secrets, and control, now stood open. Not to let darkness in, but to finally let the pain out. Life beyond them wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that finally was enough.